the road again. We can't wait to get on the road again. Telling stories to our family and our friends. We can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again. We can't wait to get on the road again. Telling stories to our friends. We can't wait to get on the road again.
Welcome to our monthly AAA podcast, Affinity, Allie, and Annette on the road to good storytelling with your hosts, Allie Spooner and Annette Morey.
Welcome. I'm Allie Spooner, and I write with Affinity. With over 40 published titles, I touch on many genres, from romance to paranormal. I have numerous series, and lately I've focused more on teaching myself to write short stories and standalone books. I hope you enjoy our podcast and have an opportunity to meet some authors that are new to you or learn more about your favorites. We appreciate your support and invite you to visit Affinity Rainbow Publications to check out our books.
And I'm Annette Morey with Affinity Rainbow Publications as well. I'm pretty sure I finally settled into a brand that includes a kind of quirky, unconventional style of writing, which I know gives my publisher fits. After 30 plus published novels now, I still feel like I have a lot to learn from others. And each time we have guests and we have a different topic, I learn something more that helps illuminate me. I've been really fortunate to have kind of a small but very loyal reader base and surprising recognition for some of my novels. So I thank all you readers that support me.
Each month we'll highlight a certain topic that might be of interest to readers and writers. And this month is polyamory, and it's regarding one of my books. We'll invite our featured authors to do a short reading, and I'll be doing 2 today, and then follow with questions from the featured topic, while I encourage them to do at least one giveaway to our audience.
This month, we're going to be talking about books that feature polyamory. I'm very excited about that. It's such a cool topic with our very own Allie Spooner. I had the absolute pleasure of reading the book before publishing, and I think it's definitely Allie's hottest book yet. Talk about super spice. This one definitely has it. Hopefully she's picked out a very spicy reading for us today. I believe it easily falls into the erotica category, but it still has such a great love story, which is the perfect kind of erotica for me personally. And it's most definitely a contemporary romance. As a special treat, though, today, we're going to also hear about her other novel, because Allie is like a writing animal, and she has published 2 books this month instead of just 1. So her other novel, The Blank Page, is set in rustic Alaska, a little adventure novel with a twist. So super, super excited about that.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Following our podcast, we'll upload to a newly created YouTube channel, and hope you consider subscribing so you never miss a future podcast.
All right. So without further ado, Allie, take it away.
All right. I'm reading first today from The Blank White Page. And as Annette said, this is a kind of an adventure and romance tied together. Tatum Chastain is a city girl from Chicago, Illinois, and she and her family own a huge international real estate company. Well, Charles is getting ready to retire, and he has 2 children, Tatum and her brother, Charlie. Tatum's a very charismatic business type person, does a lot of the sales for the real estate company. And Charlie's more of a bean counter, less personable, but very, very intelligent. So he's kind of at a dilemma on where to go with who runs the company after he sunsets. So he has come up with a brilliant idea to send his 2 children off on an adventure and to test their resilience and their creativity in handling problems. So he sends Tatum to Southeast Alaska to a fishing cabin that he has there, and Charlie goes off somewhere in Eastern Canada. So This is a section that I've chosen. It's about a weekend um, from her arrival in Alaska. Rain moved in during the night, and I woke to the constant tapping of raindrops on the roof. I climbed from the bed and walked to the front door to look outside. The clouds hung low with the weight of the rain, and it appeared at least the morning would be a washout. After making coffee, I sat at the table and looked around. The bag of carrots and onions hanging on the hooks caught my attention. I could eat breakfast and then chop some vegetables for soup when I could venture out for a soup for when I could venture out for a spruce chicken. I had a few large empty jars left, which should be ample to store some soup. I cut a ham steak to place in the pan to heat and began making pancakes and scrambled eggs. I reached for my cup of coffee and heard a tapping on the front window. I turned to find Poe staring at me. Are you hungry? I picked up a pancake and carried it to the woodpile at the end of the porch. Poe had moved to the porch railing to watch, and when I returned to the door, he flew over to the pile. I left the door open behind me to bring in the fresh scent of the rain and the sound of water flowing off the roof. After serving my meal, I took my plate and coffee to the table and looked across the river, watching the raindrops form ripples in the water. So peaceful. I chopped and diced carrots and potatoes for the soup and found a small container to place the scraps into for Poe. He was nowhere to be seen when I put the container on the woodpile. There wasn't a scrap of pancake left. I'm so glad he enjoys my cooking. The rain slacked off around noon, and I decided to risk going to the spruce stand to hunt. I wouldn't melt. I pulled on my rain slicker and hat to walk out to the ATV as the sun began to peek through the clouds. Greenery shined with water as I drove along the now familiar path, and the air smelled fresh and clean. I'd never scented air like this in Chicago. I parked the ATV at the grove's edge and stalked quietly until I found the first bird. I was surprised at how much bigger the bird was than the other grouse I had harvested. It was in the same family, but it was almost the size of a domestic chicken. After bagging two more birds, I processed the meat and returned to the ATV. I would fry one and boil one each for soup and dumplings. It was time to break out the cornmeal and make some fry bread. The soup and the dumplings would store well and make a hearty meal to warm quickly on cold winter days. I used both burners to boil the breast while working on the woodpile. I filled the sled twice with quarter rounds and stacked them near the bathhouse fire pit before returning inside to check the cooking meat. I reduced the heat and removed the breast to cut them into cubes. When I opened a drawer for a knife, I saw something that I had previously overlooked. A case pocket knife was tucked into a drawer. Probably had been left by my father. It would be the perfect knife for carving. I removed the knife and opened it to inspect the blade. It seemed a bit dull, but I could sharpen it for carving. When the first breast was chopped, I added the meat to the broth, surrounded it with vegetables and a healthy portion of rice, covered the pot, and started working on dumplings. I smiled at my progress when I dropped dumplings into the soup and added flour to thicken the broth. The cabin smelled heavenly. I sharpened the pocket knife and walked to the porch to carve a spruce chicken. The piece wasn't as impressive as the first three, but I was pleased with the smaller knife's maneuverability versus the belly. Poe dropped to the ground near the fire pit for a drink of water before hopping on a chair to watch me. I lifted the carving piece to show him. It's not as good as the one of you, but I'm still learning. When I returned to the stove, I added a handful of mushroom pieces to each pot and pulled the remaining jars from the pantry. I stared out the window at the wood still on the ground, needing to be split. I planned to place at least one load at the fire pit. That was an area I had not taken full advantage of yet, but I would remedy that soon. The view of the river and the mountains was too beautiful not to enjoy as long as possible. At night, the temps were cooler, and a fire would adequately cut the chill. After stirring each pot, I reduced the heat to a simmer. I chopped another portion of onions and potatoes to cook with the breast on the grill, and would also cook the fry bread. After checking the pots, I turned off the burners to allow them to begin cooling so I could transfer the contents into jars. After splitting and stacking the last of the wood, I returned to the kitchen to store the food. A portion of the dumplings would not fit, so I placed in a bowl added more seasoning, and let the pot soak in the sink while I tried them. My eyes grew wide when I took the first bite of the bird. It tasted like blueberries, which were obviously a part of the bird's diet, but it was a pleasant surprise. At the very first opportunity, I would take my baskets to see if I could find the blueberry patch or any other type of berry and search for more mushrooms. Berries would be great to add to pancakes. I grinned. I always thought of new ways to spice up meals. Maybe tomorrow, after setting the nets again, I hope I haven't missed the run. I really wanted to send some fish back with Troy. It would be here soon for delivery, and then I would press hard to harvest as many fish and other game for winter meals since I would have a reliable means of storage. After cooking dinner, I cleaned the kitchen and sat on the steps when I looked up at the chaga. It looked to be drying well, so I removed a small section, cut it into small pieces, and then used a spoon to grind it into a powder. I opened the iPad while the tea brewed, and when I felt it had time to cook, added a bit of sugar to a cup and filled it with a fragrant liquid. I was surprised at the taste, and within minutes, I felt a sense of overwhelming calm. I felt a silly grin fill my face almost giddy, as I felt almost giddy and wondered if that was one of the effects of the tea. Not unpleasant at all, I thought. I fought back the urge to break into giggles. July 9th, day 7. I'm still experiencing a feeling of euphoria as I try to enter my journal for the day. It is challenging to focus on forming words, so I'll keep it short. Another great day, and chaga tea is the bomb. 2 days before Troy arrives. Good night, Poe. When I woke the following morning, my bladder ached for release, so I rushed across the yard to relieve myself. Poe called to me from the top of the smokehouse. I know, breakfast soon. There were 2 pieces of fry bread, which I'd fed him on the woodpile. Then I cooked a large ham omelet. The chaga tea didn't leave me with a hangover or other ill side effects, but damn, I was hungry. I was eager to set the net and would make fillets for Troy to return to town to share. I had plenty of gallon-sized bags and hoped for a big catch. Once I returned, I hooked the sled to the ATV and brought in some of the alder brush for the fire pit before topping off the tank and searching for blueberries. I tossed 2 5-gallon buckets in a wicker basket. I passed the spruce grove, going deeper into the forest until I saw another small lake. Walking around the edge, I found patches of wild lettuce and picked some for the basket. It would be great as a salad or a garnish for fish or fowl. Ha! I'm beginning to think like a bush chef. I heard the flutter of wings and shot another bird. So far, the morning had started off great. I drove until I found a large patch of early ripe blueberries. I exited the ATV and released the trigger guard on the pistol on my shoulder. The birds and I wouldn't be the only ones foraging for berries. Bears would be eating anything in sight to fatten up for the long winter hibernation, so I would need to keep my eyes and ears open. The pistol would do little for protection, but might be loud enough to scare him away or give me time to escape to the ATV. I picked up quickly and filled a bucket full of the juicy berries. I contemplated a second bucket, but decided to stick to one until I could store them properly. It would be bad juju to waste such a pleasant treat. I added mushrooms to the basket and returned home to drop off my bounty. I poured the berries into the sink to soak and rinse off any sand or debris, and spread the lettuce and mushrooms on the countertop. After adding salt to the water to brine the grassgrass, I refilled my water bottle and snacks before walking to the boat. My heart was overjoyed when I lifted the first float on the net to feel the weight of the fish caught. It was the most significant catch, pulling 16 fish into the boat. As I drove back to the cabin, I had a brainstorm. As I was rummaging through the storage shed, I saw 3 plastic milk crates and several bungee cords, and an idea popped into my head. The water isn't below freezing yet, but the water was cold, or colder than a refrigerator. I decided to rinse the fillets, store them in Ziploc bags, and then place them in the crates to attach to the dock to remain fresh. I dropped the fillets into a pan to return inside to rinse them and bag them. Several fish were stuffed with eggs. I gently placed the sacks in the pan with the fillets. One sack broke in half, so I put it on the smokehouse for Poe. You're going to get fat sticking around here. He looked at me and then began eating the rich eggs. When I carried the pan into the cabin, I drained the blueberries and filled the gallon bags with berries, leaving a bowl to use in cooking. I planned to use one of the milk cartons to store the berries. Damn, I was becoming a genius. Dad would be proud of my creativity and problem solving. I carried the full bags of berries and fillets and placed them inside the crates I had hung off the dock. There was plenty of room for more, and the water was cold as a cooler. I used some of the berries and pancakes for dinner and placed the grouse breast in my homemade cooler. I could cook them in anticipation of Troy's arrival. I used the last two sections of wood at the fire pit to carve more salmon, and I was establishing a collection along the windowsill in the kitchen. I picked up the raven and used 2 pieces of kindling to scorch the carving without burning. Once the piece cooled to the touch, I picked it up and rubbed off the ash, holding it up for Poe to see. Does it look like you? Poe's head bobbed, and I smiled back at him. When the fire died, I walked inside and rubbed some used oil into the wood. I was pleased with how the oil made the wood shine. It reminded me of the sun's reflecting off of Poe's feather. Yeah, that's it, I said, and placed the carving on the windowsill.
So I'm so curious about Chaka tea. Have you ever tried it yourself?
I have never tried it. I've seen it on several outdoor shows. And basically, it's a large fungus that grows on the trees. And it's got several medicinal qualities. It's supposed to be an immune booster and everything, but it has sort of a psychotropic effect to it as well. And I guess if you drink it too strongly, like Tate did on her first experiment, you get more of that psychotropic effect than anything, because she was very giddy and wanting to laugh at everything.
Well, when I do make it to Alaska, which I hope to do someday, I'm going to have to check that out for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, now for steamy.
All right. This is from The Wolf and the Unicorn. It's live everywhere today. It's been on pre-order, and it's also available on Kindle Unlimited. The Audible portion of the book is still under production, so hopefully around the end of the month, the first part of next month, it'll be out and ready to go. All right, so Celeste, Annette wanted steamy, so I tried to go semi-steamy. I didn't want to go too overboard because I can already feel my face turning red and blushing. So here we go. Celeste locked the door behind them and led Keegan into the bedroom to undress her between teasing kisses and removing her clothes. She pressed Keegan onto the bed and straddled her waist, leaning forward to kiss her as Keegan's hands caressed her back. There was a hunger in Celeste's kiss, so Keegan rolled her onto her back. She moved on top of her and kissed her deeply as her hips ground into Celeste. Celeste broke the kiss and looked into Celeste's eyes. I think I know just what you need tonight. What does the doctor order? Celeste asked. I think you need a good fucking, Keegan said. I do like that order, Celeste said, squirming on the bed. It will help me sleep tonight. I'll be right back, Keegan left the bed and grabbed some extra pillows. Keegan entered the bathroom and opened the toy drawer. We'll need to do some shopping before we go to the cabin. She stepped into a leather harness and removed Celeste's favorite sex toy. She attached the large dildo to the harness and entered the bedroom with a small bottle of lubricant. I don't think you will need that lube tonight, Celeste said, and Keegan stretched out beside her. Keegan covered Celeste's right breast with her mouth as her hand cupped the other. Her nipples were erect, begging for attention. Keegan's teeth grazed a nipple as her fingers twisted the other. Oh, fuck yes, Celeste groaned as she pulled Keegan's face onto her breast. Suck it hard, baby. Keegan opened her mouth and filled it with breast, pressing Celeste's nipple against the roof of her mouth. Her right hand stroked down Celeste's stomach until she reached between her legs to feel the freshly shaved mound, radiating heat and covering her palm with moisture. Her fingertips teased Celeste's opening, causing her to moan loudly and lift her hips, begging for a firmer touch. She lifted her head from Celeste's breast. I bet I know a young woman who will fall in love with this. Her hand caressed the smooth, soft skin. Just imagine her face buried between your legs and her tongue exploring deep inside you. You are so wicked. Tell me more, Celeste said while teasing her nipples. Her fingers are long and will feel so good stroking you deep. They should easily reach your G spot and have you quivering with pleasure, Keegan chuckled. Just remember, she's in an apartment and it's not as soundproof as like we are here. No screaming to scare the neighbors. Better turn some music on then, Celeste replied. We have several playlists will be perfect, Keegan suggested. Lift your hips, she instructed, placing a thick pillow under her body. That should work. Keegan poured a small amount of lube into her hand and stroked the length of the toy, just in case. Fill me up, Keegan. Keegan placed the tip of the dildo at her entrance and pressed forward until several inches disappeared inside Celeste's body. Wrap your legs around me. Celeste's ankles were locked around Keegan's hips as she continued to press deep into Celeste's body. Damn, that feels good. Celeste's voice trembled with desire. Keegan began stroking, slowly removing several inches before driving them back into Celeste, taking her time and lengthening her strokes. The contractions in Celeste's body against the dildo caused the harness straps to create a delicious pressure against Keegan's clit. Sweat trickled down between Keegan's breasts as the exertion of her thrust increased in speed and depth. Faster, Celeste urged. Keegan felt her legs sliding on the bed, so she stopped her thrusting as she reached beneath Celeste to pull the pillow to the edge of the bed. As she stepped onto the floor, she placed her hands on Celeste's hips, holding them in place as their bodies collided and the dildo disappeared inside her. The new position was more comfortable for Keegan and allowed her thrust to penetrate Celeste completely. Her body was ready to explode, and as Celeste cried out she was coming, Keegan's legs went weak as an explosive orgasm ripped through her. Keegan's body was spent, and she carefully withdrew the dildo from Celeste's body and dropped the harness to the floor before crawling up beside Celeste. That felt so good, Celeste said as she snuggled into Keegan. Yes, it is, she agreed. Do you think you can sleep now? I most definitely can, Celeste said, pulling the covers over them. Her voice sounded like a purr as she draped an arm and a leg over Keegan. Good night, my love. Good night, Keegan answered, holding Celeste close as exhaustion took its toll. Then I also have another selection, if we've got time.
Oh yeah, I want the threesome there. Come on now.
All right.
I know it gets spicier. Come on.
I didn't do a threesome, but I did do the first encounter with Sky and Celeste. Sky is the young pathologist that has just moved to Nashville, and she has taken quite a shine to Celeste. And with the events that are happening, this is their first time together. So Sky pulled Celeste into her arms and pressed their bodies close as they began moving to the music. She looked in Celeste's eyes. I wanted to kiss you so badly on the dance floor. Nothing is stopping you now, Celeste replied. The kiss began tenderly as lips brushed until Celeste opened her mouth, inviting Sky inside. She untucked the shirt Celeste was wearing and allowed her hands to caress Celeste's back. And when her fingers unfastened the closure on Celeste's bra, she felt a deep moan vibrate in her mouth. Celeste broke the kiss to allow Sky to lift the shirt and bra over her head, leaving her naked from the waist up. Sky's hands cupped her breast as Celeste kicked off her shoes and pulled the belt on her robe, pushing it open. She leaned into Sky to resume the kiss, and when Sky used her hands on Celeste, asked to pull her closer, their bodies were skin to skin. This feels good, Celeste whispered in between kisses. Her hands floated down Sky's body, dropping the robe onto the floor. Sky's right thigh was pressed between Celeste's legs as the seductive dance continued. Celeste's hands reached for Sky's ass as she ground her center on Sky's thigh. Sky removed the belt from Celeste's jeans and opened the fastener so her hands could slide down and cup Celeste's ass. As her hands reached into her jeans, Sky moaned when she discovered there were no panties underneath. Her lips moved to Celeste's neck as she kneaded her ass cheeks. You feel so good, she breathed against her skin. Sky couldn't ignore the hard nipples pressing against her chest any longer. She leaned down and nibbled the left nipple, eliciting a gasp from Celeste when she took her breast into her mouth and sucked it roughly. Oh, fuck yes, Celeste cried out. Suck it hard. Sky had no problem following Celeste's request. She was feasting on her breast and was far too late to worry about love marks. The harder she sucked, the more Celeste's arousal grew. She could smell the scent of the moisture soaking through the jeans onto her leg. Sky moved onto the other breast and slowly maneuvered them to the bed. She pressed Celeste into the bed and continued sucking her breast as Celeste buried one hand in her hair while the other lightly dragged her nails up from Sky's ass to her lower back. Sky moved off the bed and reached for the waistband of Celeste's jeans. Celeste raised her hips as Sky pulled them off her legs and tossed them away. When the hairless mound was revealed, Sky felt the muscles in her stomach clench. Celeste saw the surprise in Sky's eyes when a clean-shaven mound appeared from the quickly retreating jeans. She reached for Sky and pulled her into a searing kiss as her hand took Sky's and placed it between her legs. Sky's large hand covered her mound, squeezing it before caressing the smooth skin. Celeste writhed under Sky's touch, begging for release. Sky appeared content. Tease Celeste, circling her lips with her fingertips and coating them with her arousal. Gasping for breath, Celeste broke the kiss. I will die if you don't touch me. When Celeste placed her hand between her legs, Sky thought the sheer sensual feeling of bare skin would be her undoing. She knew Celeste's body was ready for a touch, but Sky wanted to prolong and relish the feeling of the first touch. Sky had never been with anyone bare before, and the sensation was incredible for her. She knew sliding her tongue across those smooth lips would be the most unique experience in her young sexual experience, and she was determined to cherish each moment. Sky moved on top of Celeste, and when her mound rubbed across Celeste, Sky felt a deep groan escape her lips. Fuck me with that beautiful body of yours, Celeste said before capturing Sky's mouth in a deep kiss. Sky's hips began undulating against Celeste, and the contrast to their lower lips gliding together was quickly becoming too much for Sky. She could feel Celeste's body begin to tremble, and Sky allowed her body to get lost in the rhythm of music, her hips pounding into Celeste like a piston. Yes, Sky, yes, Celeste cried out as her orgasm erupted. Still lost in the beat of the music, Sky straddled Celeste's right leg and plunged 2 fingers deep inside Celeste. Still reeling from the first, Celeste released the second wave of orgasm as Sky's fingers thrust deep inside her. She had not anticipated that move from her young lover, but her body responded with a powerful climax. Celeste was beyond thrilled with the veracity Sky displayed in satisfying her needs. She was breathing hard when Sky's mouth covered her breast, and her fingers began curling deep inside her, brushing against her G-spot, extending the climax until her body began convulsing with pleasure. Celeste reached down and removed Sky's fingers, bringing them to her lips. She kissed them and looked at Sky. My heart is about to burst from my chest. And I will stop there. It is much easier to write than it is to read it.
Well, I'm just going to tell the folks out there that while that was super steamy, it gets way steamier.
Yeah.
So that was relatively tame compared to other parts of the book that were extremely, extremely spicy. So
yeah.
Anyways, just to let y'all know that. So tell me, what was the biggest challenge you had writing a story about a throuple?
Well, one of the motivations for even attempting an erotic romance was to hopefully share with readers that it is very possible for people to love more than one person at a time. And Keegan and Celeste have been married for many, many years, very, very much and very deeply in love, very secure with their relationship. And Keegan understands that Celeste has a very voracious sexual appetite, and she understands that no matter, who she flirts with or whatever, she's always going to come home with her. So I wanted to kind of portray it in a way that um, sh- showed the independence of the women, but also the respect that they had for each other, and make it a very loving situation, and still allowing them to be their own independent selves. They both have things that they
Right.
like to do that the other does not. So just trying to keep it real and not go too far overboard.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is, I think, hard to weave a satisfying romance into erotica. I often find one or the other parts are lacking, versus, keeping a nice balance between romance and erotica. I mean, that takes real talent. Are there any specific tricks you think you use to be able to balance those two compete? I don't think they're competing, but they're definitely, it does take some tricks to balance
Yeah,
the two.
and I tried to get them to balance, and leaning a little bit heavier on the romance side of it, not always just pure erotica, but to add in some very intimate scenes of self-care, how they interacted after the lovemaking was up,
Right.
feeding each other banana pudding in the middle of the bed,
Yeah.
after an intense lovemaking, making sure everybody stays hydrated, and showing the love that was, while it was still mildly physical, it wasn't all sexual.
Right.
And hopefully I was able to pull that off.
Yeah, because there are definitely different kinds of intimacy. You know, intimacy isn't just sex, like you
Right,
said.
right.
Feeding, putting, taking. That self-care component. So, the other thing that I think is especially hard with erotica, or even just writing sex scenes at all, is how to keep them fresh and new, especially when there are so many in an erotica book. So any thoughts on that in terms of keeping things fresh and new? And
I mean, I just kind of opened up the imagination and let it flow. I certainly have added the use of toys in this book quite often. So I was doing some research on some sex toys just to,
there you
kind of spark some ideas. And God hope nobody ever looks at my browser history, but just to kind of get some ideas of some things that may be new, or it's not the same old all the time, and mixing it up, trying to be as creative as I could. I mean, there's plenty of different things that are things that I've never written about before. And
right.
we'll leave it at that.
I was, I peruse Facebook all the time, and somebody posted this picture of this. I don't know if you saw it. Did you see it? And
Yes.
I thought about your book, and I'm like, gosh, I wonder if Allie came across this particular sex toy. And
I did not see that one before the book, but that would have
oh,
been perfect. Yeah.
it would have been perfect. Yeah, I don't remember that specific. Just to let the rest of y'all know what if for those of you who did not see the picture on Facebook, there was it's literally a double-fisted dildo, right?
Right.
One is more like a cone, which you actually did use that
Right.
cone sort of in for those of you who don't know what a cone like this. And the other is an actual fist, right? Wasn't it? If I
Yeah. Yeah.
recall. Yeah, one side was a fist. So here's kind of what it looked like for those of you who didn't see the picture. So instead of a double dildo, it was, I guess, this, anyways.
Yeah. It
I
was
thought that
interesting.
was
I saw that and it's like, holy cow.
yeah, pretty
Yeah.
pretty intense there. Anyways, I remembered reading certain parts of your book and thinking, oh my gosh, I wonder if Allie found this particular
I did
stuff.
not see that one.
So I know we're talking mostly about polyamory here, but you have two books out this month.
Right.
And I'm sure that readers would love to know what inspired you to write both The Blank Page and The Wolf and the Unicorn. Was there any particular inspiration behind each book, which is they're so vastly different from one another?
Yeah, the Blank White Page. I started thinking about this story when my oldest sister was diagnosed with cancer, and um, I wanted to write a book that showed a strong, courageous woman who didn't back down from challenges. And so, in writing this, I tried to keep some of the characteristics of my older sister in mind, and kind of not putting her in the story, but thinking about her very deeply when I'm creating some of the scenes. And the things like the funny little scene with the chaga and those kind of things. As she's going through treatments and stuff, she's feeling like crap on most days, and it's like, I wish I could just give you a cup of chaga tea and let you chill the rest of the afternoon away. But I wrote it with her in mind, and it's actually dedicated to her because I want her to know how proud I am of her, and that she's done a wonderful job. Hopefully, she'll remain cancer free, and she's going through some additional immunotherapy right now. So I'm very proud of how she has fought through this process, and is a survivor, and she battles on, and we've talked about some creative things on how we can do things when some of the side effects of the medication were coming. We talk and share experiences and stuff like that. So that book is dedicated to her.
What a lovely tribute.
Yeah. And I thought she was going to cry last weekend when I saw her, and because I didn't know my little brother had already shared the dedication with her. It's like, oh man. So I hopped on Amazon and ordered a copy of the book for her, and I mailed it to her yesterday. So hopefully she'll get that next week, so she can read it for herself. And the Wolf and the Unicorn, I've seen so many Facebook posts, wanting, more erotica. There's not a whole lot of polyamory books out there that are all male or all female.
Right.
Most of them you'll see two males or
Yep.
two females and a male. And I really wanted to create that world with three females. You've got two that are very settled. Keegan is an orthopedic surgeon. Celeste is the director of nursing for the hospital. And then, 10 years younger, here comes Sky, who's a new pathologist, new to the Nashville area. And they just click from the beginning. And, I wanted to show that, while it's not something that people think about often, it does occur and can be very successful, as long as everybody remains independent and respectful of each other. I think Keegan and Celeste were very open with Sky that, if she found somebody that she wanted to date on her own, they were perfectly fine with that. And I think that's something that's important in those types of relationships. Keegan was, or Sky was portrayed as somebody who was a combination of the two of them.
Yes.
She was very athletic, wanted to learn how to play golf, which was, right up Keegan's alley. She loved dancing, she loved sex, and she loved cooking, which was right up Celeste's alley. So, they just made a good threesome. And, I think they treat each other with, very much dignity and respect. So I wanted to portray that. So it wasn't something that was just all sex and no intimacy or no real love. Because, like I said, I think that it's something that is very, very possible, and probably is going on a lot more than we know about.
Right. I'm sure it probably is. Probably is. Because it's such, I think it's been stigmatized, and so not a lot of people will admit to having those experiences.
Yeah. So. And if I can explain something real quick, on the title. When I first proposed this book to Affinity, Julie's smacking her head. Oh no, not another paranormal book. I said, no, it is definitely not paranormal.
Right.
She thought with the wolf and the unicorn, it was going to be something like that. But the wolf and the unicorn in the book relates to tattoos.
Right.
When they first meet, Sky finds out that Keegan has a tattoo on her side of a wolf. And it was a tribute to the love that she and Celeste shared. So Keegan got the wolf, who wolves mate for life,
Mhm.
and she had to put on her body as a symbol of their love. Well, as part of her agreement to join this tryst, Sky went and got a tattoo of a unicorn on her other side of her body, so that when they slept together, she would have her Celeste would have her wolf mate on one side and her unicorn, her third person, on the other side. So that was the reason for the name of the book. So it was definitely not paranormal at all, but it symbolized the two tattoos that symbolize the commitment to each other.
And just so, if in case readers don't know, a unicorn is actually a term for the third party who enters into a polyamory relationship with an established couple. That's
right.
Called the unicorn, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So I know you have a collection of steamy short stories, right?
Right.
And especially, at least from my perspective, your earlier writing, you were kind of known for writing good sex scenes, good steamy sex scenes. But lately, you've been a lot tamer until The Wolf and the Unicorn came out. So what changed? Or do you feel like you've come home again writing more graphic scenes that you're so good at? Or is this a one-off? Are you going to go back to the more tamer?
I think there will be a combination. If this book is well received, it may give me some encouragement to write a little bit more steamy. Not necessarily another polyamory book, but more graphic sex scenes. And a lot of it depends on what my characters drive. Some characters, I just don't feel are wide open doors as far as sex, and are more better served with fade to black, or very minimal graphic descriptions. So a lot of it just depends on the story. I thought with these three, boy, it's doors wide open, and just go for it.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. Yeah. So you are a writing maniac. How in the world do you manage to write so much while maintaining a full-time job? I mean, I'm retired. I've got nothing else better to do but write. And I can't even come close to how much writing you've done in the past couple of years.
A lot of it with me is just binge writing. I have the luxury of working remotely from home most of the time. I don't travel as much as I used to in the past, so I don't have the writing time in hotels that I would do. But a lot of times, if a story is working, I'll write on my lunch hour. And sometimes on the weekends, if it's really flowing,
right,
I'll write 6 or 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll get an idea or something 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's like, I can't go back to sleep until I get up and write the stuff down. So, and a lot of times that'll end up writing for 2 to 3 hours. So, it's just, when it hits, it hits. And, I'll go sometimes, like right now, I haven't written a whole lot until recently. And, I've got a couple of things that are started, but, with the feedback that I've gotten from the Blank White Page, I've already started a sequel, and I'm probably 4 chapters into that already because I wanted to strike while that storyline was still fresh in my brain. So, I'll work on that for a while, and when Tatum and River go silent, then I'll pick up somebody else and finish it. I'm working on, another cowgirl book, the
good.
third in that series. So, and a couple other new things that I'm just kind of toying with. So,
Yeah, great. Good for you. Well, we love it. Keep writing.
yeah.
So, there aren't many stories that actually feature polyamory. They're kind of hard to find. Why do you think that is? Do you have any sort of theories on why there just isn't much out there to choose from?
Well, I'm old enough I can claim that I'm old school, and certain things have been taboo in our generation, and I think it's becoming, I won't say more prevalent, but more accepted in younger
Yeah.
populations, more
Yeah.
generations.
Yeah.
It's with all these different terms, pansexual, asexual, all these different things flying around. I
Right.
think poly is definitely something that more and more people are looking at. And I saw many posts on Facebook that talked about, where are these books? Where are these stories?
Yeah, no,
So I figured
there aren't that many. There really aren't.
yeah. So I figured, what the hell, I'd go for it and try my hand at it and see if I can make it work.
Yeah. Yeah, let's hope that trend still continues and it continues to remain more accepted so that more of that comes out for individuals who are really looking for those types of stories.
Yeah.
How much research did you do for both books? And did you
Well,
do more for one than the other?
Probably more for the wolf, simply because of the different toys and everything in use. But I did do some, on the Alaska book, because there were certain things I wasn't sure, like the chaga tea. I'd heard of it before, but
Right.
I wanted to,
Sure.
different things in the areas, the Athabascan culture.
Yeah.
That River was a part of. I did a lot of studies on that.
Yeah, that was interesting. Really fascinating, actually.
Yeah, the different things that are going on with that. But when I first started talking about doing a polyamory book, you and I had a conversation, and you told me about a Netflix series.
Yep.
You, me, and her.
You, me, and her.
Yeah. So I watched that just to kind of get a general idea of where their relationship was successful and where it failed and why did it fail.
Right.
Because in a lot of instances it was a lack of communication, or they weren't allowing themselves to still be individuals. So that's one of the things that I really wanted to try to stay away from and not cause that drama or miscommunication, and keep it a very loving and kind relationship between the three of them.
Yeah, good. So how much of your personal experiences are part of either book? Come on, dish for us.
Well, I can honestly,
any kind of physical research you did for the wolf and the unicorn?
I can honestly say that I've never been a part of a successful threesome. And not that's something that I would pursue moving forward, but it was interesting to write about, and to I guess do it in my imagination on how I would do it if I were to do it again. So it's just nothing personal as far as experiences lately. Back in the younger days, played around a little bit, but it just never worked. It was impossible to keep the balance between all three without somebody feeling left out or get feelings hurt. And it's like, I have enough trouble with one to bring in a second one.
True. Yeah, relationships are work. I would think that it would add an added complication that would make it difficult. So I was happy to see how well the throuple in your story does manage that. And they were all intelligent people. So
yeah. And I think they really worked it that aspect of it is just, keeping it fun and lighthearted, but respecting each other and
Right.
allowing them to be individuals.
Okay, so I know you talked a little bit about there's going to be let's hope, a sequel to the blank white page.
Yeah.
And there's going to be another cowgirl story. So
Right.
that's good. Anything else on the immediate horizon? What is the next book of yours that's actually going to be published?
I've got another book. It's a standalone. It's called Sullivan's Trace, and it's about a horse rancher who races championship quarter horse cutting horses, palominos, beautiful golden palominos, and her next door neighbor is also her lifetime vet, and he decides he's going to retire. So his granddaughter is also gone to vet school, and she has agreed to move in and take over his practice. She's a few years younger than the main character, and they basically start um, learning about each other again during a tragedy. There's a young foal that gets attacked by wild dogs, and they spend hours upon hours trying to rescue and save this animal. And, the sparks begin to ignite. And just as their relationship is about to take off, tragedy strikes again. And the main character's brother and sister in law in Atlanta get in a tragic car wreck and die. So, and they have an 8-year-old daughter that the main character is the godmother to. So all of a sudden, she's not only almost in a brand new relationship, she's also going to be an instant parent. So she goes to Atlanta, goes through the funeral process, the closing of the house, and moving the young girl to the ranch, which is, I think, it's a pretty beautiful story in itself. But
That's I haven't read that, have I?
no, you haven't.
I was going to say that sounds really good. So you are going to send it to me, though, right?
I will. Yeah. And it's due out October, I believe, and then you and I have our Christmas novella that we've written together.
Right.
And then I've already got another one on the books, I think for February or March of next year, called Fairy Tale, Tail Farms. And it's about a vet who is semi-retired, and she and her school teacher wife, who's also almost retired, developed this big piece of land. And they go to the local shelters for all the animals that nobody wants to adopt because of age or sickness, or somebody's had a limb that's amputated. And so they start this Fairy Tale Farms to house those people, house those animals. And it's got a few twists in there that I think just worked out beautifully.
And I haven't read that one yet either, have I?
I don't know. I
mean, I know that you've talked about it, but I'm pretty sure I don't have the details on it. So I don't think I've read that one.
I guess I'll be sending you some books to read.
I guess so. Well, if the other one's coming out in October, I'm probably going to be getting that sometime in the future anyway to do last look.
It's in editing now, but I'll send you a copy of it so you can get an idea for the story itself.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, that's great.
Yeah.
All right. So, anything else that you want to share with?
No, if folks are interested in Audible code, they can comment on the post, and I will send out a couple, probably 2 for each one of the books, so we can get those shared.
Right.
And I appreciate the opportunity to read today, even though it was kind of difficult, but it's fun as usual being with you and sharing new things with readers.
All right. Don't forget to check out our YouTube channel. And don't forget to pick up both the Blank White Page and also The Wolf and the Unicorn, which is out on Kindle Unlimited. For those of you who
Yes.
have Kindle Unlimited, be sure to download that and give some support. And last but not least, we will be in California in October for LCLC. So hopefully we'll do some postings and do some stuff there and let you all know about what's going on at LCLC. So that'll be great. Thank
Absolutely.
you all. All right.
Thank you.